Good evening, everyone. This is Sukanya, and thank you for joining the internal research briefing. This is a unique initiative to empower our teams with top trends, recommendations for clients in the post COVID-19 era, and advisory that your clients are seeking in the current times. We would really like this session to be an interactive one. So there will be a Q&A round once the presentation is over. You can either raise your hand after the presentation and I will unmute you and you can ask live questions to Megha, or you can also type your questions in the questions tab and I'll be happy to circulate them to Megha and she'll take them up once the presentation is over. So there are two options for you to ask questions. Please make use of those options. Make it an interactive session. Without further ado, I'll now hand it over to Megha. Megha, over to you, please.
Everybody, and thank you for logging in. Those who have logged in, I'm sure this session will benefit them a lot. So I have curated this session keeping in mind the questions or the discussion points that you may have or you may come across while interacting with clients. So the agenda is as follows. We will just touch upon the economy, then the office sector overview and the trends which are forecasted. Then we will move on to the investments in real estate, how the investment scenario is. Then moving on to some opportunities, industrial and warehousing, and then ending it with the report list that research has published this year, from where all of these findings have been presented. So quickly, I think a lot of noise around, and I think all of us are in a jiffy. We all know how the economies are performing across the globe. Technically, we are in recession. The global economy, the global GDP growth is expected to shrink this year. India has thrice revisited their GDP forecast this year. And the latest one from Oxford Economics states that there will be a -3% growth for this year. As we all know that this will be, this is an indication of a slowdown in consumption. The investor confidence has declined. There has been unemployment data, which has been an all-time high of 23.5% in April, compared to 8.5% in March. So from these statistics, it's no surprise that we will be seeing a negative growth this year. However, the interesting part is that 2021 will see a sharp upswing. If you look at the chart on the left-hand side corner, it actually depicts an 11% growth that India would see, which is the latest one coming from Oxford Economics. So you will see a V-shaped economic recovery for India this year. Another question that you may come across is how the financial markets are impacted, and how have they responded to COVID. The real estate sector stocks and general BSE index have shrunk. The overall index has shrunk by 23%. However, there was a steep decline in realty index by 42%. However, it has provided opportunities for investors to acquire stakes in companies whose valuations have been not attractive. Right? So we have seen investments by global investors also, the latest one from Facebook and Jio, etc. So it has also turned out to be an opportunity for investors to look at Indian companies. Consumer spending, it's a tough one. The consumer spending has fallen sharply. It has seen negative growth amidst the job insecurities. People are keeping money close, and therefore the private consumption patterns have been an all-time low. Recently, the government of India had infused around 20 lakh crore stimulus package on the 12th of May. This was done in a staggered manner, which was announced by the finance minister over a period of 3 to 4 days. Now the question is the financial stimulus enough to revive the real estate sector? Now we all know that the financial stimulus is around 10% of the GDP. How does it fare relative to other economies? It is actually the largest financial stimulus package across Asia and the 5th largest across the globe. So I think the package is of enormous quantum. However, will that be enough to revive the economy in these times? There is no straight answer to that, but our analysis has shown that 74% of the package is about liquidity and credit schemes, while 26% of remaining is about for monetary and fiscal support, which is given by the government. So the stimulus is long gone. It will definitely provide a breather to several sectors such as agriculture, MSMEs, NBFCs, and also the vulnerable sections of the society. What were the misses? The overall package had indirect benefits such as credit guarantee schemes or new funds creation, but it had very limited scope to stimulate the demand immediately. So there were expectations by sectors such as hospitality, travel, tourism, etc., which were not directly announced by the government. So these on this slide, I've just highlighted some of the key announcements and our insights about it. For the office sector, the central bank has announced to extend the date of commencement of commercial operation for loans given to a commercial real estate organization by 1 year. So what does that mean? So the commencement of any commercial project now will, and the loans taken over by the organization, now it's extended by 1 year. This will provide some breather to the real estate developers, especially in the commercial office sector, who are actually facing some financial stress, and will also improve cash flows. The residential sector, I think there's a lot to cheer in this sector right now on a relative basis. We have seen multiple reduction in repo rates, which are currently at 4%. The home loan rates have declined substantially. It's at a 15-year low. Most banks are lending at 7.25, 7.5%. So there has been passing of a reduction of interest rates, which is comforting the buyers who are sitting on fence, and also for ongoing loans, which also results in reduction on EMI. The credit-linked subsidy schemes, now those have been extended until March 2021, under which the affordable housing sector and the middle segment received at subsidized interest rates. Currently around 3.3 lakhs of investors have been benefited by such a scheme. I think the extension have also comforted that segment of strata who can avail this benefit until March 2021. Infrastructure and industry, around $13.3 billion of incentive have been given to strengthen the farm gate infrastructure. Now the farm gate infrastructure actually includes the cold chains, storage centers, logistics and aggregation points, which are managed by the government. However, with such boost given, I think we can also expect some private players and small scale to large scale investments going into the sector in the next couple of years. Office sector, how has it been fared? I think everybody would want to know how the leasing activity is going on in the office sector. We are compiling the second quarter results as of now, since we have just entered the last week of May. We will have the first half numbers coming up around in a month's time. Until then, just a quick glance how the first quarter has been. If you look at the total aggregate numbers, the year had begun on a positive note. We had seen a 4% year-on-year rise in absorption levels. The details of how the cities have performed is on the left-hand side. We've seen Bangalore to be the front runner, followed by Pune, Delhi, NCR, and Mumbai. Supply also has increased by 1% to around 13.2 million square feet. The vacancy levels are hovering around 12%, which is quite healthy compared to many Asian countries, where we've seen an average rate of upwards of 15%. Now, very interestingly, I would like to just touch upon a few trends that will emerge in the commercial office real estate over the next 1 year. So I've just listed around 6 trends that we are seeing will take shape in the next 6 to 8 months. Number 1, we've listed that the building completions will be delayed, of course, because there was an imposed lockdown, and we have also seen reverse migration of workers. Colliers was expecting around 88 million square feet of new supply this year. We had made this estimate in December 2019. However, since there have been certain limitations, we will forecast and revise this number, and which is expected to fall in June of around 50 million square feet this year. Flexible workspaces. This is in fact one of the hot topic in discussions with occupiers, developers. This was actually top 3 demand drivers of leasing activity for the last 2 years. However, this year there has been a bit of slowdown in taking up spaces. In fact, some of those flexible workspaces operators are also facing slight renegotiations by the operators. So this sector is expected to consolidate in 2020. However, with sharp recovery expected, I think it will still be among the top 5 leasing drivers for India. REIT listing. There was a lot of buzz when the first REITs were listed. However, with the financial markets not doing as anticipated, most of the REIT listing will be pushed to next year. So that trend is also that we're forecasting. There were certain variant prospectus, etc., which were listed, but we haven't heard any progress on those as of now. So we anticipate that this will be getting pushed to 2021. Number 4, technology acceleration. I think this is the subject which is talked about a lot, with work from home gaining importance. Technology has also attained, technology adoption has attained acceleration. Colliers had coined the term workplace plus technology as AnyTech. You may find that report on the website, which generally talks about how technology and workplace in a combination, which is AnyTech, will gain importance in the coming years, and how Internet of Things and artificial intelligence sector plays a very important role in the times to come. In fact, in even current times. So technology acceleration, cloud adoption will strengthen. AnyTech will be the core of operations for organizations in the coming times. Workplace wellness. Very recently, we had put out a report on workplace wellness in pursuit of health and wellness for occupiers and developers. This has attained utmost priority for both the stakeholders. We had talked about a concept called high performance building, wherein one could invest about 15 to 20% of more in buildings to build high performance building. and in turn over a period of time, in about 5 to 7 years, there are tangible benefits with respect to um, the employees' work levels and around 3% employee turnaround and other things were also seen beneficial. So the Occupy financial gains were about 6 to 7%. There was 5% lower churn. The productivity stands enhanced. Sick leaves go down, etc. So a lot of importance about workplace wellness has been placed. We will talk about this in detail in subsequent slides also. Space utilization. A lot of occupiers are now preparing their office spaces for a comeback. I think most of the occupiers have done now with 50% of workforce allowed to step in. The workspaces are reimagined and redefined. The occupiers are also looking at redensifying office space with the norms which have been announced, such as 6-foot distance, etc. So space utilization is something in the short term which will be impacted, but as normalcy resumes, we may see again change in patterns. Now, just to summarize the office sector, I mean, many of our clients would want to know how will the leasing activity be in 2020. So just to give a flavor, we were expecting the leasing activity to be around 50 million square feet at the beginning of this year. However, now, given a slowdown in decision making, we expect it to be around 40 million square feet. I mean, the final numbers for the first half will come, as I said, later this month, but this is a ballpark figure that we're expecting for 2020. Now, with all these changes, how are developers and occupiers reacting? So we have seen tenants optimizing the real estate portfolios. They are reevaluating, reimagining office spaces. They would want to see how their office space requirements are in the near terms or in the long term, and reassessing the portfolios. Developers, on the other hand, they are continuing to construct. They're continuing to do construction and ensuring safety measures at workplaces and sites. They have also adapted safety and hygiene elements and standard operating procedures to ensure occupiers and tenant safety. Just giving a bit more on that part, while occupiers have been focusing on health and wellness, now developers, it's very essential, that will be a crucial thing so that they attract and retain high quality tenants. So I'll actually explain developers a bit first and then move on to the occupiers. So what are developers doing to boost confidence? So we had, as I mentioned, we had put out a report on pursuit of health and wellness, wherein we had suggested that developers may formulate a back to work framework and a standard operating protocol that may maintain and enhance tenant confidence. We also suggested them to study real-time data on space usage in common areas to understand which areas are dense at specific time periods, and then one can think about repurposing them. While on the other hand, occupiers are adopting a 6-foot distancing measure. They are rearranging the existing workplaces. They're drawing out strategy for employee movement routes, etc. within the offices. As I talked about the high performance buildings, we just mentioned a brief on this slide, that it reduces the sick leaves by 30%, it lowers down churn, and giving an overall benefit of 6 to 7% in the long term to occupiers and developers. In addition, research had suggested a 6-step for workplace preparedness Those 6 steps are mentioned below in the infographic. Those span from immediate steps from 1 to 7 days, then 7 to 3 months, and 3 to 12 months. I think we can go through this in detail in the report, but just for a quick read, we have talked about 1 to 7 days in terms of ready workplace for sanitizing, social distancing. However, up to 3 months, we've talked about hygiene and health protocols, in boosting immunity systems, review of writing, workplace layout, etc. But in the longer term, we have urged occupiers to look at de-densifying office spaces, periodic monitoring of workplaces for health and stress levels for employees. On that note, I would like to bring to notice that Colliers has launched Back to Work Navigator. This helps occupiers to be prepared to prepare workplace for employees to resume office. This tool gives a 48-hour turnaround recommendation. I am sure the business teams have been briefed on it. For others, if they have any they can definitely reach out to the business teams or me, and we can talk about it, because it's really helping them to prepare work while most of the office staff resumes office. Very critical in this environment where GDP is being revised or downgraded are the investments happening in the real estate sector. To answer that question, I'll just give you a brief about how the investments have been so far in Q1. There's definitely, we had seen a decline, unlike the office sector, which had seen robust leasing in the first quarter. The investment sector had seen a 62% Q-on-Q decline. And 82% YOY decline. Now, please note that these numbers are as of Q1, which is March 2020. We have the segment in Q1. Now, given the slowdown in investments, we have revised our estimates to $3.5 billion this year from initial of $6.4 billion. And we have also talked about the opportunities that the investors can look out in these current times. So just to give an overview, all of this, I'm just repeating myself, but all of this is also mentioned in our reports. But I'll quickly go through this. Now, where does the opportunity lie for investors post-COVID times? Now, as we know, the opportunistic assets, which are also called distress assets, especially in the hospitality and retail space, are offering attractive valuations. Investors should adopt a cautious approach, however, to look at those assets and do a proper due diligence and asset identification. Core commercial office assets have become more liquid. There has been a decline in interest rates, and hence the office yields have been more lucrative, right? The acquisition of residential from tier 1 developers can also be looked at for last mile funding the sector. There are new opportunities in data centers and logistics. Now, given the firm domestic demand that was seen for essentials goods during the lockdown also, there have been a potential growth of cloud infrastructure and retail online strategies by companies. So there are new opportunities which have also emerged during these times. Now, how the investment landscape has been so far. There have been a slew of reforms by the government over the years. We've categorized them under enablers, but still we see certain challenges persisting in investment, the investment scenario. So talking about the enablers here, we have seen announcement of Vocal for Local program, which is a pro-business policy, which will help our domestic firms to have more market share in the coming times. The commercial office market has been resilient. We have seen Q1 numbers were still in positive range. The ease of doing business has substantially improved. There has been enforcement of IBC and goods and services regime. There have been easing of FDI norms in certain sector. So collectively, the investment environment had a lot of enablers, but at the same time, there were certain challenges which also persist, which has impacted the investments this year. For example, the economic slowdown overall has reduced the sentiment. There has been a delay in decision making. RERA has not been adopted in a uniform manner, and is still relatively in a nascent stage compared to other developed markets. There also has been an issue on liquidity front for residential projects. As we all know, the NBFC crisis which had prevailed early this year and last part of 2019. So I think having said that, investors will be still keen to look at India, given strong enablers, which we discussed. Now, how has investors so far looked at the real estate sector? So now we know that there are certain enablers and challenges that the sector has seen. But in 2019, we had seen around $6.4 billion of investments coming into India only in the real estate sector. So what was the split of those of that money which had come in 2019? So just giving an overview about that. Commercial office assets were the front runners. They comprised of about 46% of the total inflows of the $6.4 billion which I mentioned. However, residential sector accounted for only 9%. The sector had seen prolonged slowdown, and therefore investors were not that buoyant about investing into this asset class. However, interestingly, the retail sector had seen around 1 billion of investments. And interestingly, tier 2 cities accounted for 61% of that share, which is a very interesting trend because we've seen domestic demand emerging or stemming from tier 2 cities strengthening over years. And this actually indicates the confidence that investors have for the retail growth story in India. Now, industry and warehousing segment, this segment has seen large investments of in last 4 years. We have also seen the sector strengthening with announcements of the farm storage that we talked about in the beginning of the year. So this segment is definitely is strong and will continue to garner investments from investors across the globe and domestic players. Taking the cue from the industrial and warehousing demand, how does the future look like for the sector? Now, as we have said that the sector had attracted around $2 billion of investments over the last 4 years, which is substantial. We see that this sector will continue to have investor interest, especially in the cold storage facility. And we'll also see that Farmgate announcement initiative pick up later this year. Some of the practices, especially Industry 4, practices, which is about automating the industry and warehousing, will be adopted. The warehousing and logistics will be upgraded by landlords and owners. Since now there are grade A level of players also looking or scouting for spaces, the likes of Amazon and Flipkarts, who have actually are looking for grade A facilities. We will also see demand from manufacturing units from China and other countries coming to India. There have been a lot of news around various players try to look at India in view of cost arbitrage, risk assessment, policy-related factors, etc. So we will see some interest from manufacturing companies also setting up the plants here. Another point which I think all of us know, the fulfillment centers and last mile delivery centers, which were at the core during the lockdown and delivery essentials, have become now crucial to meet on-time delivery. We see such centers sprung up in next couple of months. Previously also, automation and Internet of Things related technology will gain prominence as developers and landlords will upgrade their facilities. Just to talk about briefly that what kind of reports and the list of reports that research has released this year, just to give a brief snapshot. And also that most of the content which was discussed today was actually extracted from a number of reports which are listed on the screen. So I would suggest and recommend all of you to please go through them and also remember some of these key points which we had discussed in this presentation, which will help you to draft or just to engage with clients more often on a regular basis. These are the questions that clients may come up with for the discussions. So I think with that, I would like to end the presentation. If there are any questions, I would suggest you to please type it in the box or unmute yourself. So Kanya will unmute and probably I can take it up from there. Okay, I think I have a question here from Nimisha. Where can we expect to see more activity, co-working or conventional leasing, especially for the Mumbai market? That's an interesting one. I think both of them have a different set of space and requirements that occupiers look for, right? There is no straight answer that co-working players or the co-working leasing will gain more momentum. Just to give a perspective, co-working is just around 5% of the total India stock, right? So it's a long way to go. However, so there's no direct comparison about conventional or traditional leasing when you look at the content, right? However, certain set of occupiers would look at opting for co-working or flexible spaces. However, my personal take is conventional leasing is here to stay. And there always be a robust demand for traditional leasing activity in India. Given the economy will rebound with V-shaped recovery, and also with large GIC players looking for 1 million square feet plus spaces, I think it's here to stay. However, we will see new models stem out like managed workspaces, etc., which is further evolving through the traditional leasing activity. I hope I've answered that question. Okay, there is one more question from wanted to understand how the warehousing sector will grow, given capitals are already low. It's a promising sector. It has seen $2 billion of investments, which is quite a lot in last 4 years. Now I think this was the only sector which was largely insulated in this downturn, right? Because everybody would, I mean, all players would want to have fulfillment centers, last mile delivery centers, near to the city centers, correct? So the model of taking up space for warehousing is undergoing slightly change. It's undergoing a change slightly because from outward nodes, I think now they are looking at city centers also. Okay, one second. This is by Deepak, Mumbai team. Do you see co-working towards shrinking spaces and surrendering spaces to the landlord, keeping in mind social distancing? See, I think it's a mixed trend. Large co-working players who have the strength to sail through these times definitely will not do so. Because there's a strong growth story attached to co-working as well. Small startup culture was strong in India, is strong and will revive. But yes, there has been certain instances where the expansion has come to an halt, right? And their further expansion plans are put on hold. However, with respect to social distancing, if we're talking about the operational aspects, what we have seen is a lot of these centers are taking extra measures to ensure safety norms. So the free seating or the hub corners are now being reimagined, repurposed. So from that aspect, they are comforting the occupiers who are looking or are still in these places. There is one more question. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through. 1 second. This is by Anna. Consolidation or dividing office into multiple locations in the same city. What will the occupier opt for when they plan their real estate strategy post-COVID? Okay, so there is no straight answer to that. I think every occupier would have their own real estate strategy in place. But some of the key trends we've seen is coming up of hub and spoke models, where as you said, the dividing office into multiple locations also looked at. However, that strategy is totally dependent on the occupier from a mid to long-term perspective. I think most occupiers are revisiting their portfolios because in the immediate term, there's a dilemma also, because in the immediate term, you need to follow social distancing norms, or you have to create a layout wherein all of your staff cannot be at the same office at the same point in time, right? So in the immediate term, it has to be de-densifying office spaces. However, I think how the situation improves, and hopefully it does, it will come back to normal, and then I think the real re-strategizing of portfolio will be looked at. So I think depending on the organization scale and their objective, they are opting for a mesh of hub and spoke model, and some of them are also consolidating office space. Vishal has asked a question referring to the investment opportunity in under construction properties. Kindly explain the risk factor. Okay, so see, opportunity in under construction asset I specifically mentioned for the residential sector. We have seen a lot of stock which have been, if I may use the term, stalled because of last mile financing issues and the liquidity crunch. So we had in our reports we had recommended investors to look at these assets. However, there persist some risk elements in that, right? One would really have to assess which market, the demand supply factors, the usage, what level of construction or investments are required, what kind of return will still yield the sector. So there is a host of risk factors that the investors should look at, and then evaluate the investment decision. Ishit is asking, will there be? Thankfully, I think India had seen the late impact of COVID, where Hong Kong and China and other countries were seeing major impact in probably Jan or Feb of this year. We had seen a late hit, thankfully, of COVID, and a quick revival also on a relative basis. However, I would not say revival because the cases are still increasing. But we haven't seen rentals revision or decline so far. I think most of the developers are keeping rentals steady, and I think this will continue for some time. Kaushik has asked, should we expect demand to pick up soon since RBI has cut the lending rates by 75 basis points? So I have two answers for this. Generally speaking, rate cuts are great. If they've passed on to the home buyers in the same spirit or the same extent, it definitely helps to ease the EMI burden, right? However, my personal take is for an individual to buy, say, 1 crore upwards, or a substantial investment, will a couple of thousands on EMI help him ease the burden? I think that's a question that one should ask and then decide. But definitely, by large rate cuts and passing of the home loan rates is excellent. And as I said, it's at a 15-year low. So 7.25 to 7.5% is what the home loan rates are. So one can just go and reduce the EMI burdens right now. So I think to answer your question again, demand will pick up. I think some of them just sitting on the fence, including the deals, will definitely go for it. But given the job markets and the current scenario, I think they might be, the newer lot might reconsider their purchase. I think Ajay has asked that how the warehousing sector will grow given cap rates are already low and returns make it difficult in this challenging environment. See, overall speaking, yes, I think all of the asset classes, barring commercial office, where the core assets give a relatively decent return, all of them are currently in the challenging times. So even same for warehousing. However, with the initiatives and the boost that the government is providing to this sector, may draw investor and operating interest going forward. But yes, at current times, I think we all operating in challenging environment as of now, and investment opportunities should be checked, or due diligence must be definitely be done carefully in these times. So Vivek has asked, how do you see data center and warehousing? Both played an important role of late. So I think warehousing we've talked about. Data center, definitely the data center policy that the government had drafted, that it can't be housed outside India for players who are operating in the country, has definitely seen an uptick for data center demand. Given the fact now there has been a lot of changes in the way we operate, how occupiers operate, I think data centers demand will definitely go up in the coming times. And cities like Mumbai, Noida, in Delhi NCR, Pune sector, including Chennai, could see an uptick. So I'm just checking 1 second. So Jatin has asked, which all investors are upbeat as most of banks have pulled back? So I think this is a generic question. Here, I think, see, over the last couple of years, we've seen sovereign funds investing into India, like CPBIB, into the likes. So all these investment figures which are there in the slide were about the private equity players investing into the real estate sector. To the likes of, as I said, CPBIB, Blackstones, and others. So I think even if the domestic market is a little bit tight, with NBFC and liquidated crunch, they are investors from Japan, from Singapore, and other parts of the world who are actually looking, which gives a decent spread across asset classes in India. We'll just wait for 1 minute. If guys have any question, please feel free to ask or type in the box. I know I just quickly ran through the presentation. It might be a lot of stuff for a 30-35 minute presentation. But in case you have any questions at a later point in time, please feel free to reach out to me. And we will definitely address that. Okay, perfect. So there are no more questions coming in. I would like to thank everyone for joining in. We've got quite a few attendees for this session. We will endeavor to do these sessions regularly and share our recommendations and insights with you. However, I would still urge you to please read the reports and share it with clients. Very often, those are very concise reports that we're doing nowadays, which are flash, which are just 2-3 pages, concise, that provides recommendation for stakeholders. So I urge all of you to, please read and forward to clients because they really help to engage and have interesting discussions with them. With that, thank you. Thank you for joining and look forward to more of such sessions in the future. Have a good evening. Bye.